I didn't see you there. I'm just admiring some mold here. Do you know that mold is a fungus, and certain strains of fungi can create our trusty old antibiotic penicillin? Let's check it out. Now, penicillin didn't always start out as the typical tablet form that we see in pharmacies today. In fact, the modern discovery of penicillin's properties was accidental. In 1928, Dr. Alexander Fleming, a bacteriologist in London, discovered mold growing on his petri dishes that prevented the growth of his bacteria. Lacking the proper resources, funding, and material, though, he just wrote about his findings and continued on with his life. It wasn't until 1938 when Dr. Howard Florey out of Oxford University stumbled across Fleming's paper that this mold was actually researched. So Fleming and his trusty biochemist Dr. Norman Heatley flew to the United States in 1941 to collaborate with American scientists to develop a means of mass producing this compound. Their breakthrough came when a lab assistant brought a moldy cantaloupe to the lab to inspect its mold. And in March of 1942, Ann Miller out of Connecticut was the first person to be successfully treated with penicillin and survive a usually life-threatening disease caused by a streptococcal infection. With the U.S. already involved with World War II at this time, the demand to have penicillin on the battlefield grew significantly. In 1943, the United States produced 231 billion units of penicillin. That number jumped to 1.6 trillion in 1944 and almost 8 trillion units by 1945, with 85% of total production going towards World War II soldiers. By June 6, 1944, D-Day, scientists manufactured 2.3 million doses of penicillin for the beach landings in Normandy. Comparing to World War I, the mortality rate of people contracted with pneumonia was 18%. This number dropped to under 1% in World War II thanks to penicillin. Also, penicillin would prevent infections in war wounds, decreasing the total amount of amputations required. Not only does it treat infections on the battlefield, but penicillin also treats venereal diseases such as syphilis and gonorrhea. There were many advertisements during World War II that also depicted this. Because of its antibacterial properties, penicillin became World War II's wonder drug. Although penicillin saved countless lives in World War II, by the 1960s, a problem was already emerging: drug resistance. Bacteria can exchange genetic material between each other via plasmids. Plasmids are like business cards for bacteria, chock full of DNA. And when a bacteria strand has a plasmid that is drug resistant, they hand out these business cards to other bacteria, allowing them to increase their drug resistance as well. The main reasons of drug resistance includes initial overuse, extensive agriculture use, and limited new antibiotics. In the 1950s, in the United States, penicillin was available over the counter for almost 10 years. People would stock up and use penicillin whenever, which probably led to most antibiotic-resistant strains to this date. In agriculture, antibiotics are used in livestock as growth supplements. An estimated 80% of total antibiotics sold in the United States are used for livestock because giving livestock antibiotics leads to larger yields and higher quality products. National attention was gained about 4 decades ago when farmers and their animals had higher rates of resistant bacteria in their intestines. More recently, it was discovered that resistant bacteria in livestock can reach the consumer through meat products. These resistant bacteria can then cause infections in humans that will be harder to combat because of drug resistance. In today's current market, it is not financially feasible to research and produce new antibiotics. In addition, disease specialists advise restraint regarding antibiotic use. So in the future, we need to be aware of our antibiotic use, limit the use of antibiotics in agriculture, and find incentives for companies to produce more antibiotics. Or else we won't just have specific antibiotic-resistant bacteria such as MRSA, we will have a pandemic in our hands caused by bacteria superbugs. Thanks for watching.